Woo! The Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here in another little carcast where we're going to do a review, and that we, meaning me, and of course the lovely and hyper-intelligent, the goddess of the airwaves, Dr. Stephanie Murphy is here with me.
Woo!
Yeah, oh, there's
Who
a
else?
woo.
Who else would you be with in the car?
Well, you're great point. But if there are more, hey, let's rock and roll with everybody. But yeah, no. So we're coming back from. We saw, and I told patrons about this. This is a Patreon-only content. Of course, thank you to the patrons that make all this content possible and that love consuming it.
Yes, thank you. And this is our own pay-per-view in a sense.
Yeah, because we're coming back from...
Your microcosm.
Yeah.
The pay-per-view we just saw.
Right. We're coming back from Clash of Champions. WWE Clash of Champions. So this is a wrestling pay-per-view. Vince McMahon, the whole thing, you know the deal. And I had said that this was coming, and we caught it Sunday night. We were there, Boston, the TD Garden. It was really, I mean, it's a fantastic venue. I've been to it personally many times myself, the Garden, for a variety of reasons. But for Stephanie, all right, little background. So I've been a wrestling fan pretty much my whole life.
Since birth.
Yeah, pretty much since birth.
You identify as a wrestler.
Yeah, I identify as a wrestler since birth.
Yeah.
So I grew up in New York, and as I've said many times in the past on Sovereign Tech, like in New York, you're just a wrestling fan, like everybody. And in fact, we've even, I mean, we live in New Hampshire now, but other people that have come from New York that have moved to New Hampshire that you and I have talked to, Stephanie.
The first thing you say to them is always, "Oh, are you a wrestling fan?" And then they're like, "Yeah."
Yeah, and they immediately identify.
And then you say, "Oh, I shouldn't have even had to ask. I mean, because you're from New York."
Yeah, I mean, man or woman, like they were, whatever. They. I mean, when you're from New York, especially like if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, anyway. Maybe today it's not so much that, but in the 80s and 90s, if you grew up in New York, you were a wrestling fan. I mean, it's just part of the. I mean, it was so hot at the time, that you can't really avoid it. So I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. Wrestling, whether people realize it or not, is actually wrestling stylings are a major component of Sovereign Tech.
Well, that was something I didn't realize until I started getting into it, but I'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
You finish up your intro.
Sure. So that's my background with it, and I was. Like for many years, I was absolutely crazy about it. Like it wasn't just like a passing thing. Like it was a very active thing, that I was very much into it. But Stephanie, you never got into it. You were never, of course, you're from Massachusetts.
I'm from Massachusetts. Yeah, here's my experience with it.
Sure.
So I remember when I was a kid, like 10, 11 years old, all the boys in my class were really into wrestling. And in fact, there were two brothers that lived on my street growing up, where they started this little, they had a trampoline in their backyard, and they started this, wrestling show on the local cable access TV.
They started their own promotion.
And it was great, and they really got into it. They invented characters, they brought in other people, and it was on the local cable access, and it actually became, somewhat popular for a local show. And so I watched that a couple times. I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is kind of cool. It looks fun. But I never really got into wrestling. I think I don't know. I think maybe it was a little bit, I saw it as a little bit too masculine for my liking.
Too toxic masculine, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very masculine sport. Even the women's division, they act pretty masculine, and it's of course geared toward male viewers. I feel I never really caught on with it. I guess I didn't identify with it, and I don't really tend to like violent programming, and I did see it as just sort of pointless violence, and so I was like, oh, this is like football, and I just never got into it.
Sure.
So fast forward to my 30s, and Brian and I get together, and he's doing this podcast, and he's opening up with, "Woo, the Golden Stallion," and all this like bravado, and I'm like, I didn't get it at first. I was like, why do you feel the need to put on this character? character. You're so interesting. You have so much to say. Like, what is the point of all this weird, like machismo, you know?
I like to think of it as energy, but go ahead. Yeah.
And Brian, of course, he is a mysterious man. He never really expressed to me that it was all kind of a character that was really based off of, like, wrestling stylings, like he said. And so I didn't understand that. I was like, why do you feel the need to do this? I was like, for years, I was like, I just didn't get it. So eventually he says to me, will you go see a wrestling show with me? And I said, well, you know, I never really got into wrestling, so I mean, I don't know if I'll like it, but I guess I'll try it. Can we watch some, you know, in advance so I can get a preview and see what it's like? And so we found this documentary series about the war between...
The Monday Night War.
The Monday Night Wars, yeah. And where was that? If people want to watch that, where can they find it? Where did we find it?
So, well, I pay for I have the WWE Network.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we watched it on there, but I'm sure you can torrent it. It's like a whole season of like an actual documentary series, and it's really, I mean, it's fascinating. It covers WCW, WWE, and like even ECW. They get into that a little bit. But it's one of the most fascinating, like if you're into entrepreneurship and business and things like that, this is must watch stuff.
Oh yeah, awesome entrepreneurship documentaries. Yeah. I mean, they were great. They have interviews with all the big players, and everybody in the industry is really participating in these. So yeah, I mean, so we started out watching these documentaries about the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW, and I got really interested. I thought it was fascinating, and I said, oh, this is cool. Like, yeah, I'd be willing to watch some more. And so then we watched some of the recent matches. So SmackDown.
Yeah, we watched SmackDown, Raw.
And Raw. Yeah. And, I mean, my first impressions were like I would cringe when somebody gets slammed and through a table or into the mat. And I'm like, oh, ew, yikes. Like, this is a little too violent for me. But, you know, once I got good enough or used to it enough to spot like how it was being faked and how they're not really slamming down it. Basically the mat is kind of like a trampoline and there's like a big spring underneath.
Yeah.
And before they smack down on the mat, they hit it to like absorb the force. And I know how that goes because I've done that on trampolines and stuff. So I could see how it's just acting, and it made me feel better about it and I could enjoy it a little bit more. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I see where this is going. And then the other thing that got me interested was that I gained a newfound appreciation for the influence on Brian and his podcast character. And that was also interesting to me, just to see where that all came from. So,
well, I mean, it's not like, you know, me on my podcast, that's me. I mean, I'm amped up a little bit, you know.
I know it's you. It's not like a complete character, but that's how wrestling is too. Like, they bring a little bit of real life into it, and so it almost
that's how great wrestling works.
Great wrestling, yeah. That's right. It's almost like a little bit of a reality show at the same time as being a drama.
Right.
So, and the lines get blurred sometimes, especially when it's really good. So, yeah, I know that your character on the show is infused heavily with you, and the lines are kind of blurred a lot of the time, and I think that's why people like it, but it definitely gave me more of an understanding of something I didn't get before.
Yeah.
So I liked it, and so I agreed to go see this pay-per-view event with you, and we watched all the material that was leading up to it, and so I kind of knew some of the storylines, and that was great to have that background, because then it got me really hooked on what was going to happen next.
Right. So, okay, so Clash of Champions is mainly a SmackDown event, just to get in a little bit of the technicals. And which SmackDown and Raw are kind of the... I mean, the WWE has other shows. I'm not going to give like a whole history of wrestling here or anything. But they've split... Because the WWE really doesn't have any competition, they kind of have to create their own. Sort of like how Sony created the company Iowa back in like the late 90s and aughts, because they didn't necessarily have competition, so they needed to create competition of some kind, even though really it was the same company. And so this is the second or third time that the WWE has tried this, where the two shows are actually two separate brands and they kind of compete with each other. Because, I mean, if you watch that Monday Night War series that Stephanie mentioned, you'll see that, like in 2001, the WWE bought WCW, bought their main competitor. But for a while, like what made wrestling so hot in the 90s, what made it so exciting for everybody, and what really, I think, made it engaging television, even to watch in a documentary format, like you mentioned, Stephanie, was because it just was so exciting what they were doing, and all of, like, the unique ideas and the competitive edge that they were going for and everything. It was really, really magical, really wild.
Especially during the Attitude Era,
right.
in the 90s. I think this had a huge influence on Brian. I mean, like, if you watch this documentary, you'll get it, what Brian's talking about with, oh, come on, where's all the sex and the ostentatious displays and, like, where's all the hedonism? Where is it all gone?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really did. Like, I mean, there's no doubt about that. Like, it influenced me in countless ways, because I saw people having fun. I saw people having a good time, and I wanted that good time, and so anyway, I don't want to get into a big sidetrack on that, but that's very true. So I think to try and recapture some of that magic that was happening in the 90s when it was WWE versus WCW, WWE has tried a couple times to create competition within itself, like between companies. And, when it happened last, it was some years ago that I remember, it didn't exactly work super well. It worked for a little while, but some of it was, like, really boring. But anyway, they're trying it again. Seems to be, doing fairly well this time around. And, I mean, there's others. There's NXT. There's a bunch of stuff within all of this. But anyway, so this is mainly a SmackDown show. And so, each brand has all their own titles. Like, there's a SmackDown Women's Champion. There's also a Raw Women's Champion. There's, SmackDown Tag Team titles. Obviously, there's the Raw Tag Team titles and all this. And all these titles that are specifically for SmackDown were pretty much on the line. There are only a couple matches throughout the night that didn't have some kind of, major championship on the line involved. So, which made for, a pretty good pay-per-view. It ran from about 7:30 to about 10:40 something, or about 10:40. So this is a 3-hour event, had a fair amount of length to it, which not uncommon for a wrestling pay-per-view, but it was, it worked. And did you feel, so in that 3 hours, and I want to ask another question, but this is just a quick one. How did you feel about that 3 hours? Like, did it go by quickly for you, Stephanie? Was it, or what, like, was there any areas of sludge, or, what do you think?
Well, I felt like I got my money's worth. I mean,
Sure.
I didn't pay for it, you did. But,
yeah, right, yeah.
But I felt like that was delivering the goods,
Sure.
They made sure that people it was worth paying for, basically.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I liked the length of it. I felt satisfied. They saved the best matches for last,
yep.
Which, of course, that's a good thing to do. I was thinking about, I was anticipating those last matches. The only thing that would have been nice is if I could hear the commentary, but so, like, when you're at the live event, you can't hear the commentary. You can only hear the announcers, like, welcoming the wrestlers as they come out and do their entrance and stuff. And that's epic. But the only thing that would have been nice is if we could hear what the commentators were saying during the match. But I think I'll rewatch it later and, then see what the commentators were saying, because that really adds a lot to it.
Yeah, the commentators, like, definitely help with the story, the excitement of what's going on. I mean, they're a major component of the presentation.
Yep.
No doubt about that. And yeah, you do miss that. Now today, and only in, like, the past couple of years, is it actually technically feasible where you could kind of do that. Like, what you could do is you could put the WWE Network app on your phone, and then you could pop on a pair of headphones,
Right.
and you could watch it on your phone and like listen to the commentators on your phone, and you could be seeing the match happening live, which we did see some people doing that, and I think that's pretty amazing that can be done now. But I mean, I think the argument would go is that, because I agree, you're missing a component of what makes it all so wild. I think the argument would go is that the people that would actually pay to go see one of these, are kind of the hardcore fan that could even run a commentary in their head. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not something that they would necessarily miss so much. And really, the fans at the event get to kind of add in their own commentary, because there's a lot of chants that have developed over the years, like that are kind of stock chants that WWE fans just know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's if a match is really great, you're going to hear the whole crowd start saying "This is awesome," and then they do a little clap, there's a bunch of different ones, that you could go down the list of. Like if somebody does a crossbody chop, that's a classic Ric Flair move, and so everybody goes woo, and and the whole crowd goes woo. There's such an amazing energy when you go to it. But you felt you got your money's worth. You didn't feel that there was really much in the way of necessarily slow moments. You never felt like really bored or anything like that. That didn't cross your mind?
No, I didn't. I wish I could hear what the commentators were saying, but that's a fair point. Like, if I knew, if I was more of a longtime fan,
sure,
I would have been able to do my own commentary in my head, and I wouldn't have cared. But we were up in the balcony, but I could see everything that was going on. They had a big TV screen that was showing sort of the close-ups when the backs were turned to us.
Right.
So, like, it was easy to see what was going on. I felt like I was close, even though we weren't really close,
Yeah, I think they've gotten it to a point where when you go to any of these events, like, there's really not a bad seat in the house.
Yeah, it didn't feel like there was a bad seat in the house.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
And also it helps that the wrestlers themselves are larger than life. Some of these guys are nearly 7 feet tall. Like these two, there was a tag team that came out, the Bludgeon Brothers.
Yep.
And they came out, and the announcer goes, weighing in at 590 pounds between the two of them.
Yeah, these two guys, almost 600 pounds.
So each of them is almost 300 pounds, and they had to be nearly 7 feet tall.
Yeah,
they were huge. They were towering over everybody, the ref, the other wrestlers, the other tag team. It was amazing. And so, but when you have a 7-foot human in a ring, even if they're far away, they look like they're bigger. So it's easy to see what's going on. So, I guess there were a few moments, maybe, where I was like, okay, when's the next match going to start?
Slow, sure.
But they really didn't make you wait very long.
Yeah.
They really didn't. And they were even cleaning up the ring in between the matches.
Right.
Like they had little like sheets over it that they could kind of just peel off like to get a fresh layer for the next match.
Yeah.
Because I guess they must get sweaty or bloody or whatever.
Sure.
At one point, there was even an Oriental rug in the ring. Jinder Mahal came out. That was a little bit over the top.
Yeah, the modern day Maharaja.
Yeah, he's an Indian guy. It's like, okay, come on. But they did really well with the props. I was saying to Brian, like before the show really got started, I was saying like, man, like how much equipment and scenery and props do they have to take around with them? And Brian said it's a fleet. There's like 20 trucks.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
How this travels
plus
around.
Plus the characters, the people, the crew.
Yeah, they're around on buses or flying, or it's quite it's such an amazing operation, really to see in action.
They really put on a show.
Yeah,
it's really good. I can appreciate the showmanship.
One thing that I was shocked by, there were no pyrotechnics like that. That used to be such a major part. Like I told you to bring earplugs, but they weren't necessary.
Well, I was glad I had them.
Sure. Better safe than sorry.
Music is loud, and I'm a voice professional, so I need my ears. So
yeah, absolutely. But it was just I was kind of shocked that wasn't a part of it anymore. And I don't know how I never noticed it, like watching Raw or SmackDown, that they had kind of stopped doing it. Maybe they just save it for WrestleMania now. I don't know. But anyway, I don't feel that anything was necessarily lost on that.
Yeah.
It was just interesting that really wasn't so much part of the program.
Well, I wonder if it's different in different arenas. Like, clearly they chose Boston for a reason. I mean, it's a great arena. The TD Garden was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was really nice. Like, it wasn't one of those broken down arenas that you go to sometimes where it's like, oh, this really needs a facelift.
Yeah.
Everything was nice, modern. They had tons of concessions. Like, nobody was waiting in line for like 2 concession stands for the whole place.
Yeah, there's really no waiting. It was amazing.
That was cool. The parking was easy. They even I was shocked how easy it was getting out of there, which was, you can't always say that. Usually you dread getting out of there at the end of a show when everybody lets out and there's thousands of people trying to go home.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a good experience. The venue was really nice. So I'm sure they picked it for a reason, but maybe that venue doesn't have the capacity for pyrotechnics. I don't know. Maybe some of them are better equipped for that than others. Although I kind of find it hard to believe that they don't have the capacity.
Yeah. I feel like I've been to the Garden and they've done it, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so I mean, but overall, and we're gonna break down some of the matches. We're gonna talk about some other aspects of this, of what you enjoyed. But overall, like, I mean, this was like you really had a good time. Is that
I had
what I'm to
a great time. Yeah, I had a great time. I've been to some I've been to all kinds of shows over the past year, concerts, comedy shows, and now this wrestling. Not really many sporting events except this.
Yeah.
And I have to say it was up there in my top shows that I really enjoyed it. I had a great time.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, because I mean, honestly, like, there was a little...
I was asking you, are we going to go to the next one?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, of course we'll do it. I mean, I'll try to start lining up tickets for WrestleMania or something. I mean, because that's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, admittedly, like, and like I said, we'll get into some of the matches here. Admittedly, I'm in no way, like, ashamed of being a fan of wrestling, but it seemed like in the Liberty Movement, ironically, almost so many people I meet in the Liberty Movement are into wrestling, but then it seemed like there were so many people that just had, like, this stigma around it. Like, oh, how can you be into that if you're into peace? How can you be into that if you're into this, blah, 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 blah. And,
well, I was one of those people.
Well, I'm just, and look, I get, I mean, it's all up to tastes. People have different tastes and all this stuff. And I understand, like, also, there's this real thread in the Liberty Movement of, like, being against team sports, because they feel like it
I was going to say, that's what I think it really was, because I think a lot of people view it as, like, oh, it's bread and circuses for the masses. It's like football. Right.
But I mean, people have a problem with football, I think, in the Liberty Movement because of, even though the Liberty Movement's dead, I think they have a problem with it because they see it as tribalism. Like, they see it as like a microcosm of nationalism or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, now
that's how I see it.
Yeah, now a lot of those same people are now pro-nationalism, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, so I think that's kind of the problem that comes up for them, and so, like, they write off all sports,
right?
Saying it's all terrible, and I've always felt that that's a little unfair, to make that kind of claim. So, yeah, but it's good to be able to, like, really, say, no, look here, it's a show. This is what it's all, this is presentation. This is, and look, I've said this many times. I think that wrestlers are the greatest athletes in the world, bar none. Because not only do they have to do these, and we'll talk about some of them, not only do they have to do these incredible athletic feats, but they have to make it look, they have to be able to do the feat, and then they have to be able to fake it, but make it look real.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, and that's like like I said, that's a whole other meta level of athleticism that people don't seem to respect.
Yeah.
And it's really a pity. So, anyway, that's just kind of a side tangent, but it's nice to be able to to talk about this, and obviously we'll be going to these events in the future. But talking about this event, so you enjoyed it. I had my own personal quick shot review. I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic. As somebody who's been to many pay-per-views, who's seen countless pay-per-views and shows, I thought it was a fantastic event.
I did too.
Yeah, I didn't agree, and we'll talk about this. I didn't, not everybody that I wanted to win won. Not everybody that I think the crowd wanted to win won.
Right, but they can't just give the crowd whatever they demand.
No, right, exactly. But I thought the matches, the people that they had come out, I saw the people I wanted to see having those belts on the line. I thought I didn't think that there was really, I didn't really feel that there was a boring match out of any of them. There's a couple moments where I felt the matches were going a little too slow, but overall, like I thought the matches were fantastic, and
there were some lengthy matches too.
Yeah, and I mean the bulk of it was a lot of younger talent, like new generation talent. They weren't bringing out Hulk Hogan or The Rock or any of these kind of guys, and they were delivering. Like they weren't relying so much on the past. I felt maybe the biggest name from the past would have been. Shane McMahon was there, but like Randy Orton was kind of one of the bigger deals from the past, and even he's kind of a younger guy in the grand scheme of things, but he delivered. I mean, all that was great. So okay, so let's break down the matches. Let's talk about it opened up with what you would call a dark match, which is a match that doesn't necessarily show up on the main pay-per-view. And that started...
Sounds like the opening act.
Yeah, it's kind of the opening act. It's like to just warm everything up, make sure everything's working in the ring, whatever.
Uh-huh.
So, and that opened up with... I know Zack Ryder, I forget the name of the first guy, but he ended up winning. Zack Ryder did not win, which he was certainly the bigger name. And it was just a match where the storyline was that they were a tag team, and...
Things went sour.
Now they're breaking up, and this was their breakup match.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a good match. The guy, his name was Mojo or something like that.
Mojo Rawley.
Yeah, Mojo Rawley. That's it. Yeah,
that's right. He won.
Yeah, he won, and I liked it. I mean, it opened up. The guy, his music starts. He's got some kind of metal music, and he comes like he looks like he's a track. He wasn't playing up a character of a track star, but at the front of you have this really.
There's a long runway.
There's a long runway that to get into the ring, and he starts at the beginning of it. He gets down like a track star, and then he just bolts into the ring. It had a lot of intensity,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's a great way to kind of start it off. Is even including for just a dark match. They made it one of the most exciting dark matches I've ever really seen, frankly. And it had a point to it too. There was like a little bit of story to it, so I thought that was cool.
I thought that was just as good as. It was it was worthy of being included there.
Sure, yeah. And sometimes these dark matches will get included. It varies. Sometimes they put it in the DVD. Sometimes they don't. But anyway, so that match was a nice warm up. I mean, how did you feel about the first match? Like, what was your first thoughts when you see this dark match going?
I thought this is going to be awesome.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, I think it would have been an even better warm-up if we could have heard the pre-show shit-talking show.
Right.
Because we saw them recording it, and we saw the simple video studio that they had set up in the corner.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, but go ahead.
Okay, so some of the players were being interviewed, and they had commentators doing this, pre-show. And I would have loved to have been able to hear that, but... And, some people were actually watching it on their phones during the show, on the WWE Network. They were streaming it. We didn't have the option to do that, we didn't...
we didn't set it up.
Yeah, we didn't set it up.
Yeah, I mean, I have the WWE Network.
But that would have been an even better warm-up for me. But, we'll watch it again. See it
Yeah, so this is something I want to talk about quickly, and then we'll talk about the real opening match. This is amazing. And this is something I've wanted to do actually for Sovereign Tech for some time, and I've been talking with you about it, Stephanie, off and on. And it's the reason I have multiple cameras and a lot of other stuff that I've been kind of gathering to maybe do it at some point. So for pay-per-views now with the WWE, and this didn't really start. I mean, they've always kind of had a pre-show, but they didn't start a pre-show at the event until I want to say WrestleMania 2000, which that was technically I think WrestleMania 16. So, that would have been late 90s. And all they do, it's so, when you see it on screen, when you're watching it at home, it looks like this awesome set that they put up and everything, when all it really is a triangular glass table with a nice face on it, meaning face on the, covering the table.
And some backdrops, a few logo backdrops.
Like 2 screens that work as logo backdrops. Okay? And then you have one person sitting on one part of the triangle, and you have like 2 other people at the other side of the triangle, and and you could have guests come on and sit, at one part of this table. But it looks amazing on screen, but it's the most basic setup. It's literally a fucking table and two screens.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But, you wouldn't know when the camera makes it, when it's filling up the entire view of a camera, right?
Right.
And this is the nature of a lot of these shows, especially like on YouTube, like the Star Wars show. There was an episode of the Star Wars show, which is this little like 8-minute news show that Lucasfilm puts out, it's actually pretty good. I watch it every week. So they did what it took to make the set, and it was nothing. It was a couple couches, and like the only thing is they had like this really nicely built backdrop, but it's a singular wall backdrop and like a couple of blue lights shining up, and that's all. But it looks like a totally professional, a television show, right? Or a totally professional production. It is so easy to do professional video production today. Like, it's mind-bogglingly easy to do that. And at some point I want to integrate that, but it was very interesting to see just how simple that setup was for doing the interview show. And yeah, it is exciting because you can have, because you have all the wrestlers right there at the event, they can butt into the interviews, and just walk in on camera. And that's really, that's exciting. And yeah, we'll watch that later. And obviously we'll also watch Tuesday night's SmackDown to kind of see the aftermath of all of this. So I don't know if we'll do like a review show of that. I mean, that might be a little overkill, but anyway, we will watch that. So let's talk about, unless you have any other thoughts on that, we can get to the opening match.
Well, one thing I just want to compliment them on real quick is, like, these people know how to sell paid extra upsell content. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole time we were watching this, I was like, oh my God, how can Brian integrate some of these ideas into his Patreon? Because they spend the free shows promoting the paid show, the pay-per-view.
Yeah, right.
Right, and then they they make the pay-per-view really good, and it's worth paying for, and people are happy to pay for it.
Yeah. And
I just thought that was really, really good marketing and good promotion. I guess that's why they're called promoters.
Yeah, no, right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they are, and this is, I've told, this is not new for Sovereign Tech listeners. I've been telling Sovereign Tech listeners this literally for years. In fact, if you go back and listen to, in the main Sovereign Tech feed, there were, what did I call them? Sovereign Tech shorts? Oh, fuck, now I can't think of what I called them. But there's only like 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
Where I just did these little short episodes where I just ranted. And in one of them, I talk about exactly how, look, if you want to know how to do business, like especially as an individual, watch wrestling. These guys, they're the best business people, the best promoters in the world. Like, and they know how to put over one guy. Forget about having to put over a whole company. Forget about having to put, get employees and all this other horseshit. Like, they know how to put over one guy. And with, with so much that you can do with tech today, I mean, with GoPros and all this other kind of shit, I mean, like, you can be a one-person production studio that can certainly integrate a lot of what, industries like the WWE and others, really, really put into their shows. It's so amazing. So you're absolutely right. That's a salient point to bring up. So, okay, so let's talk about the opening match, which they started right off with a title on the line. It was the United States Championship, which is, and
it was a 3-way.
It was a 3-way, yeah. Now, some of these matches, I didn't know what the rules were exactly, because you can do there's ways that you can go about this. Like, there's what you could call kind of fatal rules, or where it's elimination, meaning that as one guy gets pinned, then you got to pin the other guy, right? Like, so if it's 3 wrestlers, the idea is okay, you got to pin one of them, and then you pin the other.
Right, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be elimination. Okay, but instead it's fatal, where whoever gets a pin first is the winner. And I thought that kind of sucked. But I mean, that's not a knock on the show. That's just the way that they set it up. I just wish it was a different way.
We probably would have heard that at the beginning if we could have heard the commentary again.
Right. So I wasn't clear that necessarily those were the rules. But anyway, so they open up, and they knew exactly what they were doing, because there's this guy, and he's probably out of the kind of the newer breed, even though he's not really a new wrestler. He had a very long history in the TNA, which was a rival, still, I guess, kind of a rival promotion to the WWE, which at one point was pretty serious. Like, they were really doing great work. But he was part of a tag team called Beer Money, which was really, just a solid tag team. But anyway, the guy's name is Bobby Roode, and he came into NXT, left TNA, went into NXT, into the WWE, and eventually he got into SmackDown. Now, this guy, Bobby Roode, great wrestler, great, he's got a great body, like, he's a great technical wrestler, like, this guy's got everything you need. But he has one thing that kind of puts him over the edge, that makes him very unique.
Yeah.
He has this entrance, and it's mainly about the music, but he kind of lives it up and sort of personifies the music and everything that's going. He has like this operatic, dare I say, almost like Romanesque, kind of entrance music that's called Glorious. And it's like so cheesy, so over the top, but you love it. You can't help but sing it, and you just feel so good when you hear it.
Everybody sings it, and then they turn the volume down. You could hear the whole crowd is singing it.
Yeah.
And they even shout it, like, before the match was beginning, they were shouting it.
Yeah,
he really gets people on board with it. And then he's got, like, these ostentatious robes that he's wearing.
Yeah, he comes out like Ric Flair wearing these really gorgeous robes and everything.
Yeah, and then his briefs will say Glorious on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's so over the top.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But it's fantastic. Like, I mean, it really, this is the kind of, I love that kind of stuff. So I appreciate this guy's attitude and the presentation that he brings in. And they opened the show up with him, and they knew exactly what they were doing, because they know once he comes out, the entrance alone gets everybody hyped up.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's so exciting.
Right.
And so he comes out and does his shtick, and he was clearly the crowd favorite.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, like, there were Bobby Roode chants, Glorious chants throughout the entire match. But he was taking on, he had to take on Dolph Ziggler, who is a guy, one of the newer blood over the past decade, but definitely somebody with a lot of talent, even though I think he's an ass. Like, and he's playing up a character, but
these men are really good looking too. Speaking as someone who's like pretty gay, these are good looking men.
Yeah,
they're like model, like they could be on the cover of a romance novel.
Sure, with Dolph Ziggler,
bat an eye.
Yeah.
So could Bobby Roode.
Yeah, Bobby Roode's got a very rough and tumble look that works, I think. And the other guy is Baron Corbin. I think I got his name, the Lone Wolf Baron Corbin.
Baron Corbin.
Was actually the U.S. champion.
Yep.
Going in.
He looked a little bit more like a metal dude,
Yeah, he was a very big guy.
Yeah. Very tall.
Yeah, I'm actually, speaking of this, the whole, just looking at the roster, a lot of these guys don't seem to need to be too cut anymore. Like, they can have some mass and size, but they don't seem to need to be, like, Bobby Roode was cut, but they don't seem to need to, like, have, like, a lot of definition. There used to be, especially in the 90s, like, having that definition and everything, there seemed to be almost a competition. Just how cut
it was like
look.
A bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
Well, I bet there's a good reason for that, because sometimes to get that shrink-wrapped look, especially on a long-term basis, like if you're touring or something, you have to take diuretics, you have to, like, and they're probably going to get dehydrated and passing out. I mean, you really can't, it's almost like a trade-off between athleticism and getting how shrink-wrapped can you look,
Right.
Because to do that, you really have to get dehydrated.
Yeah. So, I mean, sure, I that makes sense. I could understand that. And also, there's been constant steroid situation, cases that have been brought up, and maybe that's something that's contributing to a lot of it, too. Is that...
There were quite a few guys who didn't take their shirts off.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Right. So that's just something I noticed, as a longtime fan, that seems to be, a little bit different. But anyway, so this match goes on fairly, I thought it was an exciting match. I thought it was very well done. All three guys, I think, were delivering, great action outside of the ring.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot. They utilized that whole space. Like, that was one of the first things I ever learned in theater. They're like, utilize the whole space. Stage left, stage right, back, forward, in the crowd, in the aisles, like everybody in the orchestra pit. And they did that. They used the whole space.
Yeah, I mean, and they were tossing people, right outside of the, not just outside of the ring, but outside of the the walled area into the crowd.
Into the crowd.
And that was, it was really, they were delivering on all fronts as far as that goes. So this match, I felt Bobby Roode was really taking it, and everybody was certainly rooting for him.
Mm-hmm.
Dolph Ziggler does end up winning, and he becomes the new U.S. champion.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that this is a build-up to where Bobby Roode eventually takes his belt. But you've got to have a heel like Dolph Ziggler. And a heel in wrestling means the bad guy, means the villain.
Yeah.
As to where the face is what you call the hero. Okay. Or some people just break it down to hero and heel now. There's a lot of these little terms, that I'm not going to give it like a history on right now, but I certainly could if people were actually interested. But anyway, so Ziggler wins it. I think it's safe to say I wanted Bobby Roode to win. You wanted Bobby Roode to win.
Everybody wanted
and everybody did.
Yeah.
The crowd was definitely behind him.
Nobody was really a fan of Baron Corbin either. He was the previous champion.
Yeah, not a lot of people pushing for that. And I didn't really know. He's definitely one newer character that I wasn't very familiar with. I knew Dolph Ziggler. He's had some very interesting storylines in the past, and definitely has a lot of talent, almost like a new Shawn Michaels, but I wouldn't give him that much credit. So the first match, or this first match, what did you think of it? Like what was your overall take?
I thought it was really interesting that they started out with a three-way match for the first match.
Sure.
And I didn't know the rules either, but it was very interesting because it's like, oh, okay, this isn't your typical one-on-one kind of wrestling match.
Right.
And it went on for, it was a decent length of a match for an opening,
Yeah, it seemed to go for a good while. When you have three guys, it's, you can do that.
Yep.
So, okay.
Wasn't there some kind of build up to it where somebody was trying to challenge Baron Corbin and then the other guy jumped in to challenge him or something like that?
Yeah, Ziggler wasn't supposed to be in the match.
Right, that's right. It was supposed to be Bobby Roode versus Baron Corbin or something.
Right. So, and folks, before I would assume this
Spoilers.
is well known.
Yeah.
Well, I assume this is well known, or that we would know this, but yes, we're fully aware that wrestling is faked and scripted.
Yeah,
and that it's largely scripted. We're fully aware of that. When you watch it, you kind of go for a suspension of disbelief to some degree, that you're like, oh, they should have done it. And look, even if it's scripted, you can change, mid-match. People backstage, the guys that call the shots on what exactly happens in the match and things like this, they can change their mind and say, oh no, we want Bobby Roode to win because the crowd's really going nuts for this. Okay, so, getting invested in what's happening and taking it seriously can actually have ramifications. So it's not like, when you hear people talking about, oh, he should have taken that match or whatever, yeah, we know it's scripted. Nobody's that stupid. It's just that, you think that the way things are going, there's a lot of elements involved.
It's scripted, but it's not boring. It's
right.
It's still kind of a reality show. There's an interactive element. It's almost still like anything could kind of happen. Yeah,
there's still you do get you do get a reward for interacting with what's happening.
Yeah.
So understand that. Like believe me, we get it. So anyway, so we can move on to the next match.
Okay, yeah.
So, if I'm not mistaken, the next match was, I think it was the women's title, or maybe it was the tag team.
No, it was the tag teams.
Okay, it was the
there
tag
was
team
a 4 tag team matchup.
Yeah, a 4-way, right?
Yeah.
So you had the Usos, you had
New Day.
Yeah, New Day. You had Rusev and Aiden English. And then you had guys, Shelton Benjamin and some guy, Gable. I don't know what his full name is. Shelton Benjamin is a tremendous wrestler who's been around for a little while. Never really gets a big break for some reason. But, you can just team this guy with anybody and he'll make you look great. incredible technical wrestler. So
Chad Gable, I think.
Chad Gable, maybe it was, sure. So this was the match where I felt like that there were slow moments.
Yeah.
And it was one where the Usos were the champions, were the SmackDown Tag Team title champions coming in. Rusev and Aiden English, or at least Rusev anyway, who is this giant Russian/Bulgarian guy, tremendous wrestler.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fun, just a great talent.
Yeah.
Great body type, too. He's just, it's like, this massive...
Barrel-chested.
Yeah, the
like,
whole thing.
He looks like he could roll around in the snow and not be cold.
Yeah. So this is one, and the crowd was totally behind Rusev. Like all the way.
They were building up. They had this song, like they had this thing they were doing
12 days of Rusev Day.
Rusev Day was like Christmas.
Yeah,
and that's the day he's going to win the championship.
Yeah, every day is Rusev Day.
And Aiden English was just basically pumping him up. And
exactly.
It was cool because nobody really liked Aiden English, but they liked Rusev, the character.
Yeah, which I'm a fan of.
He was the star of that show.
Absolutely. And I've been a fan of his actually for a while. Like, they they didn't play him up as Bulgarian. They played him up as a Russian. Mm-hmm. And he had his quote-unquote wife, Lana. But I really liked it when he was kind of like this Russian against the Americans. I thought that was such a cool, like, storyline. I always love it when they do that. Not a new one for wrestling, but it's a lot of fun when you get the foreigner versus the Americans. There's a lot of themes of the foreigner versus the Americans. Yeah, and I always root for the foreigner.
Right, I know. It shows how racist people are.
I don't know.
We'll get to that at the end.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in the last match. You'll see this theme come back.
Yeah. Anyway, so this match, I don't know. It was exciting. There's people, getting put through tables. You had a lot of those elements and everything. When you have that many guys in the ring.
No, nobody got put through a table on that. At least successfully.
Wasn't in that one?
No, it wasn't. It was Kevin Owens.
Oh, that was Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Okay, successfully they didn't go through a table.
I think there were a couple times where they were trying to put someone through a table, but the table didn't break.
Right, yes. Yeah. So, this is one, you got 8 guys in a ring. And look, historically in wrestling, if you want to pack a house, okay, you have like 6-man tag matches, or in this case, 8-man tag matches, and you're just guaranteed, because, when you have that many people around, it's good, something exciting is gonna happen. The thing is, me personally, Rusev was great. New Day, people have this like really wild fascination with these guys, which they're actually they're a tag team that has 3 people, even though only 2 people can compete at a time.
Right. The other guy just plays the trombone and hands out pancakes on the sideline.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get it. They're really big with the kids because they're kind of funny and they do all this wild stuff.
Yeah. I like their aesthetic, I guess. They're like really happy and positive. And that's nice. That's nice for a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I get it. I just, it's not exactly my shtick. The Usos have been around for a little while. Mm-hmm. I get they're Samoan, which, Samoans have a pretty impressive tradition in wrestling.
Right. Rock and
The Rock,
grandfather.
Rock, High Chief Peter Maivia and others. I know that's kind of a big deal and everything, and they're great. Not that anybody was necessarily a bad wrestler, but I don't know. I didn't feel invested in what was going on. And as great as Rusev is, like, Aiden English seems like an odd man out. Like, it doesn't make it doesn't seem to make sense.
What is he doing there? He's like skinny. He's like, nobody likes him. Like, it's all about Rusev. That tag team is all about him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know how they got paired up,
Right.
But the Usos, it kind of made sense because they're brothers or something. They seem like they could be brothers. I don't know.
Sure.
They look very similar. They're about the same height and body type.
Sure.
And they have similar tribal tattoos.
Right. Well, there's a point to that, but yeah.
I guess it's some kind of Samoan tattoos.
Yeah, it has meaning, sure.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that. But when you see them from a distance far away, it's like, oh, okay, these 2 guys have the same tattoos. That's nice. It's almost like they're wearing a uniform even though they're not wearing any clothes,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I thought the one guy was pretty good looking. Like, he had kind of a shave, like an undercut.
One of the Usos?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure,
Long,
sure.
curly hair
guys,
on the top, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just seem more like no nonsense. Like they're not going to waste a bunch of time talking smack. They just come in and get the job done and clean up and go home.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a big part of it. Is there was some comedic talking, but there wasn't anybody like that could really deliver kind of like, look, I'm going to kick your ass kind of speech.
Right.
You know, and that's really
important to be able to have somebody.
Yeah, somebody out there's got to be like that kind of serious, and I don't think that there was anybody out there like that, and so maybe that's why I wasn't necessarily feeling it, but I mean, it was a good match. It just wasn't. It certainly, I think, in comparison to the rest of the matches of the night, it didn't feel like a great match, and there was points where it felt amazingly, even with 8 guys in the ring, it felt to me a little slow.
Mm-hmm.
The Usos did end up holding on to their titles. They ended up keeping it.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame them. The whole Rusev Aiden English thing seemed kind of new, even though obviously the crowd, I think, was really wanting Rusev to take it.
Yeah, we were rooting for him.
yeah, definitely.
But not for Aiden English.
No, that guy's just annoying.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel about this match overall? You know, do you have any hot takes you want to put on it, or?
Well, I noticed one thing they did, which is maybe why it felt a little bit slow, is that at a lot of points, like, it would shift to where someone would get kind of knocked out for a little while, and then they would have 2 people basically in the ring, and they'd focus on them, and everybody else is sort of lying there groaning on the floor.
Yes.
And I think that's why it felt so slow, because there wasn't that much, like, there were times when, even though, yes, there's 8 people in the ring, 6 of them aren't doing anything.
Yeah, right. Or
And maybe they
it
just
seemed
figured,
like 6 weren't, yeah.
Right, it seemed like 6 weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
It's, maybe they did that because they figure people can't pay attention to 8 people at once, but it did feel, I agree with you, it did feel maybe a little slower than it should have at certain points, but still a great match. I mean, there were points where somebody dived off the ropes onto, like, a crowd of people and knocked, like, people down like bowling pins,
Oh, yeah.
And that's always cool to see that.
Yeah, when somebody flies off the top rope and takes out, like, everybody there.
Yeah, on the outside of the ring. I mean, that's hard. That must be hard to do, too.
Sure.
To catch somebody in midair, especially a big guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so that match went, no titles changing hands, so, maybe that part wasn't made a little less exciting, too. But you can't, it's okay to have matches end where titles don't change hands. Otherwise, wow, we have champions for a month, and then what the hell? That'd be boring too. So the next match, let's move on to the next one. The next match was, in my opinion, kind of what was happening around it, I felt like would have made it one of the more exciting matches of the night. I don't think I could call it like match of the night, but the SmackDown Women's title.
Yeah.
And it was Charlotte Flair against, which is literally the daughter of Ric Flair. Which I think she's incredible. Definitely one of the most exciting things going in the WWE in general, not just women's.
Yeah. I mean, she makes you like her, I feel like. Even though she has that family name that you could say she's falling back on, and her opponent did say that.
Well, yes, but Natalya does too.
Oh, okay.
Because she's a Hart.
Oh, okay,
she's like the niece she's the daughter, I think, of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and she's like the niece of Bret the Hitman Hart, pretty much.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. But... Yeah,
so she's kind of full of crap,
right.
saying that, like that she used her family name. Natalya used her family name all the way.
Right. Well, you could say, like, about Charlotte Flair, you could say that she could just, try to fall back on her family name, but she really shows that she appreciates the title. She didn't take it for granted. She was working really hard for it. She's wanted it for a while, and she's so grateful to finally have it. She did a lot of, like, hard technical stuff that, she was working for it.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel like she was getting any freebies there.
Yeah,
and she makes you like her.
Yeah. I mean, even when I don't know if it was exactly when she first came in, but certainly early on in her career in the WWE proper, she was a heel, she was a villain, and even then, you still, like, I mean, in my opinion, you just had to love her. Like, she was just pulling it off, and, like, she could back up everything that she was saying. And she's actually won a ton of like awards outside of what the WWE grants you. Like you have Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which is a publication that's been around for decades, that like awarded her like Rookie of the Year, Wrestler of the Year. I mean, and she's broke a lot of ground for women in general in the wrestling industry. Like, and she's earned things that women just never have.
And
so
the other thing I liked about her was that she is beautiful, but she doesn't have that sports model abs for days physique that some of the other female wrestlers do, that just look like, oh, come on, what are they doing in the ring with all those hair extensions and fake eyelashes?
Oh, yeah,
Charlotte Flair was more real looking, and so I like that as a woman, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to go that far, get the breast implants and the, hair extensions and fake eyelashes to go play some sports,
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So, I think she's tremendous. And so she was wrestling Natalya, and it was what they call a lumberjack match, where outside of the ring, you put a bunch of other wrestlers, and so that way if somebody falls outside of the ring, all those other wrestlers are supposed to go beat down the competitor that fell out of the ring. And so it was all women wrestlers that they put outside of the ring.
And they built up this storyline like they were all jealous of everybody who got to compete, and they all wanted the title for themselves.
Yeah. Though, interestingly, I didn't see anytime Natalya got put out of the ring, it didn't seem like anybody went after her.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, but whenever Charlotte would fall out of the ring, they'd all jump on her.
So bad.
Yeah, and they would fight each other to get a shot at hitting her.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting at her, which was kind of interesting. So with this match, me personally, and I definitely want to get your take on this, Stephanie, how you felt about like seeing women wrestling, because it's kind of it's far more popular now, but it's still somewhat of a rarity, and certainly historically it's been a bit of a rarity for there to be like really serious put on such a high profile. There have always been great women wrestlers, Mae Young, Fabulous Moolah. I mean, I could, Alundra Blaze. I could go down the list of all the tremendous women's wrestlers that there's been. Obviously China, that there have been over the years.
Oh yeah.
But it's still kind of seen as niche. So anyway, this match, I mean, I thought it was very exciting. I feel like Natalya, if this was her, so Charlotte Flair won. She's keeping her belt. She came in as women's champion. She's holding it. I thought Charlotte was very exciting in what she was doing. I felt like Natalya was being a little more brutish, and I'm not knocking her for this, but she was wearing like a full bodysuit.
Yeah.
Almost like I don't know, maybe she wasn't spending a ton of time in the gym or something. I'm not taking away any of her athleticism. To get in there and do what she does, you've got to be an athlete,
Yeah.
And I've actually been a fan of hers over the years, but I don't know, she just looked kind of odd to me. And something was, so if this is her like leaving the industry, because she's been in it for probably over 10 years now.
Yeah, she said that at the end when she lost. She said, oh, WWE has turned you guys are booing me.
Yeah.
They've turned their back on me. Well, now I'm turning my back on all you guys, and she walked away. Yeah,
well, I mean, I kind of felt like I was getting this kind of sense that she wasn't taking it very seriously.
Right.
And I don't know how I felt about that. So a part of me was like, yeah, let her go, because I don't know. I thought she was actually the weak point in the match. Everything else going on around it made it very exciting.
Yeah.
But she wasn't even really, in my opinion, she wasn't allowing for Charlotte Flair to put on a lot of her very impressive moves, because Charlotte Flair can fly. Like, in fact, at one point she did, where all the lumberjacks were outside.
She ended the match by doing a backflip off the ropes into a crowd, into all the women, and knocking them all down like bowling pins. That was my favorite single move of the night.
Yeah, she did a moonsault, right? What they call a moonsault, right off the top rope to the outside of the ring, just leveling the playing field. I mean, she just leveled everybody.
Yeah.
And it was that was remarkable to see that.
That was amazing. I don't know how they pulled that off. That must be really scary to do that.
And I don't know how tall she is, but I don't think she's short. Like,
right.
I mean, she's a.
It was impressive to see her do this backflip right in the air.
yeah, that was something.
God.
So she's fantastic. She might be between like her and honestly in the women's division overall on Raw and SmackDown. Like in Raw, they just brought back Paige, who Paige is amazing.
Oh, she's hot, yeah.
Yeah, she's hot, yeah.
Awesome.
But I mean, she's amazing.
She's a good talker, too.
Yeah, she's a great talker. The British accent helps with her. But anyway, but Charlotte Flair and Paige are probably like and I guess maybe Bobby Roode are probably my favorite things going as far as people that are out there normally. I mean, not counting like Triple H or Stephanie McMahon or something like that. Mm-hmm. But they're probably my favorite things going. So seeing this women's match, I liked it a lot. I thought Natalya was the weak point of it.
Yeah.
But I was very impressed by it. So I mean, how did you feel about the match overall, Stephanie? And then, but also I'm curious, like, how do you feel about women wrestling? I mean, like give me your takes.
Oh boy. Well, this is a feminist analysis I haven't had much time to process. So
Sure.
I'll do my best. I'm still kind of working out how I feel about it, but okay, there's definite tropes in women's wrestling.
Yep.
One is that it's a bitch fight, right? It's a cat fight. Like, all the women are jealous of each other, unless they're on the same team, but even those alliances can be broken up and friendships can end and blah, blah, blah. But they never even show, like, the teams forming. They never show the friendships getting together. If the women are in a tag team. They never show why they're in a tag team together. They just show the animosity between other teams and individuals and stuff like that. And they're, like, it's all just, like, pure cattiness, like the trope that you would kind of expect, right? Like, oh, women are always fighting with each other, right? They're all jealous of each other. So there's that. I don't like that much, because I feel like it reinforces a stereotype and a trope. And you could easily have other types of storylines where, the women are getting together, or they, maybe they're a little more than friendly with each other or something.
Yeah.
Or they're just, like, defending each other from men or from other wrestlers. Who knows? Or from the bosses. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple points on that, real quick. One is, I think the cat fightiness is improving.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's...
But that's still kind of the standard. I think that's what people expect.
Sure. Because I think, because there have been wrestlers like Beth Phoenix, Chyna, and I think Charlotte Flair as well. There have been female wrestlers who I think could take on the boys.
Yes. Chyna definitely.
Yeah. And
awesome.
you never got to see Beth Phoenix, but she certainly could too. But that whole thing, like a men versus the boys, like a real men versus the boys, where like the women are kind of protecting against each other against the men or something like that.
Yeah.
That is a storyline. That is storyline gold that needs to happen yesterday.
I agree.
I don't know why I hadn't exactly thought of that. That has to be a thing. And I like and have like the women do like guerrilla wrestling warfare.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
I think that would be so fucking exciting, and have Charlotte Flair like kind of heading that stuff off, because people could believe that Charlotte Flair, I mean, and even if it's because of her namesake.
She comes in like Wonder Woman and just rescues all these women.
My
from
God. Fuck.
Yeah.
That needs to fucking happen. Holy shit. I'm getting a student hot. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me. Like
that was the other element to this that I wanted to talk about.
That would be so badass. I would love that. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, that was one thing. I would like to see a little bit more diversity in the storylines. And to be fair, I haven't watched it for that long. I haven't seen wrestling for that long.
Yeah, sure.
But to me, there were a lot of tropes. Anyway, the other one is, it was very centric on. It was almost like heterosexual porn. It was very centric on male gaze and male pleasure.
Sure.
Right? Like, I mean, everything from the costumes to the body types. Like, I want to see some fat women wrestling.
Well, they're out there. They are there.
I know, but there's so few, and there were none in this one.
You didn't get there, because there's the Samoan gal that Lana brings out.
Okay.
She is totally, I mean, she's huge. Like in every metric. Like, I mean, she wears a full bodysuit. I mean, like she's a big woman.
Okay.
And I think Natalya kind of fit under that, even though it seemed like she was trying to hide that she was. She's always been kind of a stocky woman, and I say that with respect.
Yeah. I just thought she was brawny. Like, she's got muscles,
Yeah. But I mean, those women are in the industry, and like one of the Riot Squad, she's definitely a bigger gal.
Yeah, she is. But even I don't know, the costumes. I guess
Sure.
you could say the men wear briefs and stuff too, and a lot of them take their shirts off and have no clothes on. But I don't know, some of the women, it just seemed like a little bit gratuitous, like they're kind of just, they're just kind of showing off their bodies. And
yeah, I'm really not arguing against you, because yes, the WWE knows its demographic.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that per se. I guess just like when I see like the whole field, they all have hair extensions.
Yep.
They all have their hair down.
Yep.
And they all have fake eyelashes. And I'm like, it's hard to pull off wrestling with that stuff.
Sure. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just hard to do sports when you're like dressed up like that.
Yeah.
And I was surprised I didn't see more hair extensions being literally pulled out.
Yanked out, yeah.
They would grab people by the hair.
Yeah.
They would all grab each other by the hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, the men did that too. Whenever someone has long hair, or
sure they do.
even short hair. When you're throwing someone back in the ring, you grab their briefs and their hair, and you throw them back in the ring. That's what everybody did.
Yep.
So I can't say I was too surprised by that, but yeah, I don't know. Just there was a little too much, I guess, of the unrealistic attire, wardrobe, or whatever, to the point where I felt like it was pretty much a requirement to wrestle in that stuff and to have a good enough body so that you could, or to have a social norm conforming body enough so that you could show it off in like crop tops and stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, there's been varying exceptions to a lot of that, I think, but I think overall you're still right. I mean, like the women, me as a longtime fan, the women's division has improved on all counts that you described by leaps and bounds. Like, like in 20 years, they are night and day. Like you wouldn't be able to even barely recognize it from what it used to be. I mean, because literally, like the women's division in the 90s and the early aughts, like a bra and panties match was order of the day.
Right.
Or a pole match. I mean, like all this different kinds of stuff. So it's gotten a lot more serious, since then. But I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I'm not, not necessarily going to pat WWE on the back for any of that. So
the only thing that would have been even more of a trope or a cliche would be somebody, stole somebody's boyfriend,
Yeah.
Or somebody cheated on their girlfriend with, one of the other women in the wrestling, and they fight each other, and they have to fight it out.
Yeah, I think they're getting away from that. There have been storylines like that, certainly in the past.
I'm sure there have.
To varying degrees of success.
The Netflix show Glow.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I love that show.
Yes.
But the only thing that was a little bit of a trope to me was that, the rivalry between the main characters was because she slept with her husband,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was like the main crux. Yeah, understood. But I mean, overall, what did you think of the women's match? Like, how did...
I thought the women's match was pretty cool. I mean, Charlotte Flair definitely carried it for me.
Yep.
She was awesome.
Yep.
Isn't Casey Catanzaro going to join the WWE? Is she still training? Like, when?
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering, like, when is she going to show up?
She might be in NXT. I have yet to really watch NXT.
Okay.
Since it became now NXT is like this development property.
Right.
That it used to just be a show, like that they ran. It was like a third promotion kind of that they were running. I mean, it still is kind of a third promotion, but now it has like a purpose. So I'll have to check that out. And Casey is from one of our favorite shows, which is American Ninja Warrior.
Yep. She retired from Ninja Warrior, and she announced that she's joining the WWE.
Which I think she's going to do great. It'll be interesting to see her in that, certainly. So that's the thing, is that, look, this women's division, I mean, criticisms aside, in areas where they still need to improve, I mean, this is exciting stuff. And
don't get me wrong, the men's divisions are full of tropes as well.
Yes, absolutely.
It's toxic masculinity at its finest,
Yeah.
And everybody's got to try to prove that they have the biggest dick and, you know, all this kind of shit.
Sure.
But, so, I mean, the men's division is not beyond criticism. And yes, everybody is being objectified. Everybody's showing off their body. They're athletes, right? Of course they are.
Well, and here's another thing, too, to keep in mind with all of this, is that this is an extreme example, an extreme extension of method acting, meaning that everything has to be over the top to sell what's going on, to sell the action. Like you absolutely, and to tell the story, because you have to rely on stereotypes and tropes to some degree to have anybody be able to come in and know exactly what's going on, or to not watch wrestling for 5 years and then suddenly come back and say, oh, yeah, okay, well, I get it. You know, it's the Russian versus the American or something like that, you know. Like, so they definitely, like, there's a point to that. And this is similar to what I've brought up, because the critiques you're making are valid, in my opinion. They're totally valid. Not that you needed me to validate them, but they're totally valid. But they're critiques that get made of the comic book industry as well, where, like, oh, Wonder Woman has huge tits. Oh, this character has, like, they're sexualizing her. Oh, they have her wearing these outfits that show off her chest, or that, you know, show off her thighs, or something like this. A lot of this. You got to understand, in comic books, it's very similar, where you have a very small panel, which is analogous to a 10-minute match, to a very short period of time. A very small panel where you have to get the point across very quickly that that's a woman that you're seeing, that you're reading about in the comic book, on the comic book page. And so, to some degree, I think that they need this. You know, like they need some of it, you know, and maybe society will catch up, you know, to where it's not needed anymore, and, you know, we'll see. But there's a point to it. I don't think they're just being assholes, or that they're just being like, well, we don't care, we're going to be men, and, you know, we're going to show this stuff off. To some degree, there's a point to it. So, and we're actually driving through a very ugly
conditions right now.
Yeah, we got some snow coming down, which, I mean, of course, the world looks beautiful right now, but sorry.
All right, we'll just keep plodding along.
Okay, you're good to keep going.
I can keep
okay.
Going. Yeah.
All right, so
now, you know, the one thing I guess was showcasing a little bit of diversity was that, you know, the intros where the women came out, they had the entire women's division out there.
Yes.
So everybody had to make an entrance, right? And there was a lot of different entrances, you know. Like, some people came out to like, kind of dance music with, like, raving music.
Yeah.
Some people came out to, like, kind of rap music. Other girls came out to, like, metal. And, you know, it was, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, and that's something that's also dramatically improved.
Yep.
Because they don't require the women to just come out waving and smiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, literally, that's all they used to do, is they play their little music.
Smiling at all, and a lot of them weren't pink.
Yeah, no. In fact, there was the one, Naomi, who was another
she's awesome.
She's great
she's
in
really
the women's division. Which she seemed to be the only one in that whole match that was sort of on Charlotte's side.
Yeah.
And where she would go after Natalia and whatever.
Well, she got attacked by those other girls, or
by the Riot Squad.
Riot Squad.
And boy, was she brilliant when she on SmackDown last week, when Naomi came back. She kind of had her comeback. She just comes running down the ring and double drops kicks like two of these women. I mean, totally legit.
To
totally
save
sold
Charlotte from having the same thing done to her.
Exactly, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So the women's division, like, I think all your points are totally sound. Like I said, I think there's been dramatic improvements. The match overall sounds like you enjoyed it overall.
I did, I really did. I'm glad there is a women's division, and you know, like, there's more than one way to be a woman, right? And you know, some women like to wrestle like that, and some women have this, like, kind of expression, like, I don't know, it's part of their gender expression. Like, women are going to be critiqued and criticized no matter what the fuck they do.
That's a fact.
Far be it from me to criticize them. I'm not criticizing them. Yeah. I'm mostly, if I'm criticizing anything, it's sort of the storylines and the way that it's portrayed as catering to men. Almost like a heterosexual porn.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm critiquing. The women themselves are, I mean, you have to be a phenomenal athlete to do this.
Yes.
And you have to be willing to put up with a lot of shit. And you have to be willing to defy some gender stereotypes as well, because, you know, there's, of course, like, this thing about women aren't as good at sports, and, oh, who cares, it's just a women's match, like, they can't really do anything that special. Well, they can, and they showed it, and I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. So now the next match was the next one the Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon and all that?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was
the second to last match.
Yeah.
That was
the last match almost always during a pay-per-view is the championship match for for the WWE title or whatever the big title is for the brand that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
For Raw, I think it's the Universal title or something.
Right.
So the next match, no titles on the line, but incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
Still, and one that a lot of storyline had been built up for, more so perhaps than any other match of the night, where a lot of the time was spent on SmackDown concentrating on building up this rivalry. And what it was is it was a tag team match with two, which is kind of unique, or like kind of hadn't been done before. I'm sure it's been done before, but it was a little bit different, where you had two referees, two special guest referees, that being the guys that run SmackDown in the storyline. Of course, one of them being the owner, supposedly, of SmackDown, which is Shane McMahon, which is the son of Vince McMahon, brother to Stephanie McMahon, which Stephanie runs Raw. And then his appointed general manager of SmackDown, Shane McMahon's appointed general manager, which is Daniel Bryan, who is a guy that has a very colored, very interesting history in the WWE. But let's just say he's he's a fan favorite. A lot of people like Daniel Bryan. He has been out of being in the ring, out of wrestling for a while because I think of a neck injury that pretty much just put him out of commission. He can't do it anymore. Or at least that's the claim. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. So the basic storyline is, and I'll be very brief, is that this guy Kevin Owens, who is a different body type, he's not the muscular type at all. Him and kind of his underling, a guy, Sami Zayn, they have been they attacked 2 months previous. They attacked Shane McMahon's dad. They attacked Vince McMahon. They put him, they gave him a DDT or something. They have been causing all kinds of trouble for the McMahon family.
They're Joker characters, and they're challenging.
Troublemakers. Yeah,
they're troublemakers, and they're saying that they're not being given the respect they deserve, and they're talking all kinds of shit about the McMahons. And,
exactly. And so Shane McMahon kind of has a vendetta against them. Yeah. And so the idea is that, look, I'm going to put you up against two guys, and if you lose, you're fired. You're gone. You're done. You're fired from the WWE. And so the two guys that they end up having to take on are kind of a newer guy that I didn't know of up until recently, and that's Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke, not Shinsuke. Shinsuke Nakamura, who is this Japanese kind of this eccentric artist style guy, very talented, really wild to watch. It's like really watching a game of Tekken.
Yeah, he almost throws some kung fu in there. He does a lot of kicks. And
a lot of kicks. Yeah, very cool. And then Randy Orton, who's another guy that's had an amazing run in the WWE. Definitely one of the wrestlers I'm a bit of a bigger fan of. I've always enjoyed his intensity, and he's actually he's an ex-Marine. He went AWOL. I mean, I think, which I really respect that.
Well, I know where he is now.
Yeah. Obviously, he made the right decision. He decided to do business over bullets, and he won, as most do. And so that was, and these are two very, very, excellent wrestlers. Kevin Owens, I don't really give a shit. I'm not a fan of. I get it that he has kind of a real Smash Mouth style, but it just doesn't. I don't know. He just looks like a brawler to me. Yeah. And that means nothing.
He just spends all his time talking shit, and it's okay, when are you going to do something?
Yeah,
there was a match before where he was handcuffed to the ropes or something.
Yeah.
And he cut himself free with some bolt cutters or something. And
yeah. They've been building this up.
They've been building it up a lot. The rivalry between Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon.
Right, and so the concern is that Kevin Owens is getting screwed. Their claim has been, Kevin and Sami Zayn, is that they've been getting screwed by the McMahon family. And so, to make sure that they weren't getting screwed, Daniel Bryan says, well, because Shane McMahon said he was going to be special guest referee, and then Daniel Bryan said, all right, to make sure that it's fair, I'm going to be guest referee as well.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of the story going here, I think, is actually, really the match isn't about Kevin Owens. It's not about Nakamura and Randy Orton. It's about the two special guest referees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was, I mean, the wrestling that was put on display was very well done. There was comedic moments where, like, multiple times where both Daniel Bryan, the referee, and Shane McMahon as referee both went down to do the count, to do the three count.
And they dived down to try to be the first ones to do the count.
Right, and it was very confusing because they'd be off time and everything, so you didn't know who actually, who would win, who would win from the pinfall. And eventually, like, it gets to a point where, like, it looked like Randy Orton was going to win the match, and so Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would have been fired, and Kevin Owens pushes Daniel Bryan onto Shane McMahon, who's about to give the 3 count, and it interrupts the count. And Shane McMahon gets all pissed off, saying, "What the fuck? You're in my way. What the hell are you doing? This is just you're causing all this confusion." And so you get that happens, and Daniel Bryan seems to feel genuinely bad about it. Okay, but then so the match continues because the pinfall wasn't there. The match continues, and it gets to this point, and this was nuts. Okay,
yeah.
It gets to this point where I think it was Kevin Owens who had maybe Nakamura Nakamura was out of the match. Like, they put him through a table.
So that was this happened before that. So somehow Kevin Owens and Shinsuke ended up outside of the ring, and they put Shinsuke on a table. Kevin Owens clears off the next table next door to him.
Right. And
then he jumps from that table onto the other table, breaks the table on top of him. I don't know what the move is called, but basically put him out of commission.
Right, and Nakamura is out cold for the rest of the match.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so it was Sami Zayn and
taking out Orton. So obviously they get into position to where, they can get the pinfall, they can win. And so Shane McMahon Orton's pinned.
Orton's pinned, yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
And so Shane McMahon gets down, starts to do the 3 count. And, it's crazy. You're about to go, oh, shit. We go 1, 2.
And then he holds his hand up and won't say 3.
He holds his arm. Won't go down for the 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was nuts. And the whole crowd goes, like, even you, Stephanie, I mean, myself, too. We were just like, whoa! Everybody's like, oh, my God.
Because it's basically confirming that Kevin Owens was right. Shane McMahon was totally biased against them. Obviously, he's super biased, and he's dirty,
Yeah, it was amazing. When he held his arm, and he held it there for a while, we were just like, oh, shit.
And he's looking around like he just got caught, like, with his pants down.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
And then Daniel Bryan sees it, and Daniel Bryan starts getting it, which is the other guest referee, starts getting in a fight with Shane about it, saying, starts pushing him, saying, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is this? And that was nuts. I mean, and the crowd was just on fire at that point. And so then it gets to a point where, the match continues a little bit, and Randy Orton gets pinned again, I think by Kevin Owens, and Daniel Bryan just gets down and just does the quickest 3 count.
Yeah.
and the match gets called, and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn win.
Yep, and so that means they don't get fired.
So they don't get fired.
Yeah.
But wow, what a match. And this is the importance of storyline.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if that happened in a vacuum, it would be like, oh wow, what the fuck,
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But it wouldn't have had like that show-stopping.
It wouldn't have had
breath.
that like moment.
Exactly. and that was remarkable to see that happen. So what I think and so it was a great match. Like, the wrestling overall was good. I mean, Nakamura is very exciting. Randy Orton's a total professional. Kevin Owens' brand of brawling, it was serviceable. It happened. Sami Zayn was pretty good in it. I think he's just annoying. But but anyway, so I think what was really going on here was Daniel Bryan is probably going to come back as a wrestler, and he's going to have a match, maybe WrestleMania, something like that, or Royal Rumble.
It looked like he was going to start wrestling with Shane McMahon.
Yeah, he's going to end up having a match with Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
And Shane McMahon, like, people got to understand, Shane McMahon can fucking wrestle. And, like, he's an exciting wrestler. Like, he's had some of the best matches, frankly, in wrestling history.
Wow.
Including with, like, Kurt Angle. He has a very famous move where he does a dive bomb, effectively, not an elbow really, though he can do an elbow too, where he'll do it like across the ring.
Oh, wow.
He'll literally launch himself across the ring, which is not easy. You know, full-on wrestlers usually can't do that shit. So he's a very impressive wrestler. So that could be an exciting match. Daniel Bryan, of course, has, you know, all the talent in the world. So I think that's what this whole match was really about. I thought the story for this match, again, it was really about the guest referees, and it delivered. Like, they really made this work.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's why they saved it for almost the last match.
Yeah. So your review is an awesome match. What other thoughts do you have on it?
No, I think you got all of it. It was just really cool to see that. It definitely surprised me.
Yeah. I mean, but this is, so, you know, you being a new wrestling fan, like, you can see how the story really can make you physically, like, whoa, like you totally react. More so, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just basing it on what I saw of your reaction. More so, I think, than any movie or even TV show could really deliver.
Yeah.
Like, that's the power, I think, of wrestling, is that even when you know it's fake, because there's just that interactive nature, and because there's still real talent having to be put on display, real athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it hooks you in, and then you put in the dash of story, and that's what takes it to the next level of entertainment that it is.
That's right. It's a whole new type of entertainment I would have never discovered if it were for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Or thought of on my own.
Sure. You know, and that's why it kind of, you know, I get annoyed. I get it. I understand why. And look, if you can't stand it because it's fake, fine. You know, good for you. You know, Mr. Logic. That's wonderful. Okay, but if you can suspend your disbelief a little bit, if you can get into it, if you can follow the storyline for a little while, you find out very quickly. Storytelling is such an integral part of the human condition. It really is. I mean, arguably, like, in fact, there was a story, or there was a, you know, write-up, might have been New York Times. I don't remember exactly who did it, but there was research of hunter-gatherer tribes. And come to find out, the guys that were, well, I mean, and gals, but the people, I guess I'll say, that were getting the most action, you know, the most love, the most, you know, the benefits, sure, I don't know what you want to call it. The people who are getting laid the most, how about that?
Okay.
Were the storytellers.
Oh, wow.
Like, the storytellers in the clans, they were considered, you know, it wasn't money, it wasn't any of that stuff. The storytellers were the ones that seemed to get the most respect, and to get the most, and, you know, like I said, to be stooping the most. Which
make somebody laugh.
Right, which is a very interesting
thing.
Yeah, and that still kind of seems to exist to this day as part of the human condition. And wrestling just takes it to this very visceral level.
That's
that few things other things can. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Sure. So, so great match. That delivered on all counts.
Yeah.
Again, that was more about the story, but, you know, that was great. So now we get on to the last match of the night, which was the WWE title match between AJ Styles and Jinder Mahal.
Yes.
Now, Jinder Mahal is a guy who was champion. He's an Indian guy, as in India. He has been champion was champion for, like, months, probably, I think, like 6 months, maybe.
I think he said 300 days or so, or 200 days.
Might have been, like, closer to 200. I think it was, like, 200 days. So, you know, around 6 months, whatever. And that's pretty good for today, because those titles change hands way more often than they should. And he lost it, I want to say a month ago or whatever, to AJ Styles. He lost the WWE title.
In a European...
in Manchester, England.
Yeah.
Which was the first time that a title had changed, that the WWE title had changed hands overseas. Usually it was all done domestically. And, you know, one could read into, the Indian guy lost in Britain, did he? You know, I mean, certainly there's something that could be said about that. But anyway, so Jinder Mahal is this, you know, he totally plays up the kind of the Sikh Indian character and everything, and he does a great job. And this is a guy, very impressive technical wrestler, meaning he can do a lot of moves. He can, get around in the ring very well. He's not just a brawler.
He's gigantic, and he's got a really good body.
Fantastic body.
He had very low body fat, too. He was very cut.
Yeah, he has like his shoulders. I mean, are just like his muscle. You know, the traps and everything.
Yeah, you could see veins
massive.
popping out from up in the balcony seats. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he delivers. This is a guy, and he can talk too.
Yeah,
like he can really cut a great promo.
Yeah, he can, and he's got this angry sneer on his face that he does when people boo him or whatever, or when he's like thinking about fighting somebody else. He makes this really angry frown, and it's awesome. It's really good. He's a good villain.
Yeah, I mean, he is a guy that, you know, he totally, as a villain, totally deserves that belt.
Yeah.
And really, kind of an open secret in wrestling is that the villains are the guys that actually make the show. Because the good guys, you know, Bellerophon's nothing without a chimera. And, you know, to use a Greek analogy. And so, you know, the villains really always carry the day. And Jinder is a guy that can really carry it. And AJ Styles is interesting, much like Bobby Roode, who I mentioned earlier, and certainly there are some others in the WWE right now. These are guys who showed off their talents, their abilities, really in other promotions, like AJ Styles was kind of the big guy in TNA, like he was sort of
outside of the WWE.
Yeah, outside of the WWE, everybody knew that AJ Styles was great. You know, like when AJ Styles has come on, you knew you were going to see a great match and everything. And he is a great wrestler. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I do think that he is weaker as a hero. Mm-hmm. Like he can't. When he's a heel and kind of plays like the idiot heel that can get made fun of or whatever. Mm-hmm. His mic work, as in like how he delivers a promo, how he does an interview, is fantastic. Like he does a great job of that. Like he has this awesome face where like he can't believe something happened. That is $1 million. It's $1 million face.
He kind of looks like a skateboarder or something.
Yeah, well,
or like a surfer dude.
Yeah, he's only had that long hair really since he came into the WWE. He usually has a very short crop cut hair, and you can see his face animated a lot more, and he can really deliver on that. But WWE has him as a hero, and people love him. I mean, people were universally chanting for him in this match.
Yeah, and he was clearly... It was really interesting because the way they set it up, it was clearly set up as the foreigner versus the all-American hero.
Yes.
And AJ Styles was, you know, they showed him doing his shit-talking before the match.
Yep.
And, you know, Jinder Mahal really plays up the fact that he's Indian, and he comes out with this Bollywood music and with like mandalas and like a picture of the Taj Mahal behind him.
Oh yeah,
and he's got these two little guys called the Singh brothers, Samir and Sunil Singh or something like that. Go around and promote him. And they were setting it up last week, and they were trying to convince the Singh brothers were trying to convince AJ Styles that they were defecting from Jinder Mahal, but they really weren't.
Right.
And they said, "Oh, he made us kiss his feet, and they smelled like curry and buttered chicken and garlic." And so it's like they're really setting up, they're really playing on people's racism, honestly.
Yeah.
And AJ Styles is over there like he's trying to play the good guy, and he's like, I'm fine with people challenging my championship, but if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. We're going to do this with honor, bravery, and courage, and we're going to do this right. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it's very over the top. I mean, that's the nature of so many of the heroes that the WWE puts together.
Yeah, but it worked on the crowd. I mean, all these white boys were cheering for... Well, they weren't all white boys.
No. Yeah.
But, I mean, all these people were cheering for AJ Styles, and they were just booing Jinder Mahal. And I even, at one point, I even heard somebody go like, "fucking Indian," or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're... Like, listen to yourself. Holy shit. So we were cheering for Jinder just because we're like, that's not fair. He's a good wrestler, and he's amazing. He was actually carrying the whole match.
Technically, he was dominating the match.
Yeah.
Like, he was doing most of the moves. He was getting in the most of the, the big shots.
Yeah.
I mean, he really was owning it.
He was bigger than AJ.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Physically and, in a larger-than-life way.
Yeah,
stage presence.
In a match like that, like, because the guy is so much larger, usually what they'll do is, and this is how this is just the way the match is supposed to go, is, he'll have to attack the legs of the bigger guy. And AJ did that, and kudos to Jinder Mahal, he sold it. Now, when I say he sold it, when he's selling it, that means that, yes, it's fake. Okay, but he has to make it look real. He has to make it look like he's really injured.
He's making it look like his knee hurts.
Right, and so he did a fantastic... I mean, like, sometimes it's hard to sell that.
Right.
when you're a bigger guy because you're used to just lumbering around.
Yeah.
But no, he sold the leg injury, the whole thing. I mean, he delivered it.
He was limping and staggering. And,
he did it
making
right.
Grimaces.
Yeah, and so I was really, really impressed with. This is another guy that's fairly new. I didn't know him that well, but he was fantastic. And of course, the USA chant started. USA, USA. Now sometimes, I want to interject this quick. Sometimes people just do that to make it fun for the show, because they know that it's the foreigner versus the American storyline that's going. It's not always like some kind of nationalism or like crazy patriotism that goes on. That certainly does happen in the WWE. That kind of the WWE is seemingly a very patriotic organization.
Yeah, they have this whole show
tribute
about
to the troops.
Tribute to the troops.
Yeah, and that's insulting, but whatever. But the USA chant started and everything. But yeah, but the match overall, it was an exciting match. It
was awesome, and it went on for quite a while, and it was it really delivered. There was action outside the ring.
Yep.
Jinder threw AJ into the crowd at one point.
yeah, tossed him right out there.
Or beyond over the barrier. Yeah. They were ripping panels off the sides of the ring, not the ring, of the outside.
Yeah, the wall.
The wall. Yeah. So, it was really impressive from a technical standpoint. And what was I going to say? Well, you were saying to me during the match that often when someone's better, they make them the villain.
Yes.
Especially when they can talk shit.
Yes.
And so that's why Jinder was the villain.
Yeah.
He's really that good.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is they'll do this a lot where they bring in this foreign character who's this wealthy foreign character or something.
Yeah.
Like the last one that they did, in fact, he was, I think he must have ran into some kind of trouble with the WWE because he was just one of the most exciting wrestlers that I had seen in a decade, and this would have been back in 2010, 2011, something like that. There's a guy, Alberto Del Rio, who I think he actually ended up becoming very involved with Paige. Backstage, and understand this guy. He played up the whole Mexican thing. He'd come pulling out, in huge stretch limos or some kind of fancy car. He had the whole Mexican music thing going and everything. He totally lived up this, this Mexican millionaire kind of lifestyle thing.
Huh.
And he had a great look, an awesome wrestler. He was incredible. And I love it I actually really enjoy it when they do those kind of characters and when they play up kind of like that foreign millionaire style thing, which is definitely what they're doing with Jinder Mahal. Because these guys, usually when they do it, they only allow for you to do that because they're putting money behind you, even if they let you put money on display.
Right.
Is if you have all that talent. And Jinder Mahal's got it. And he was really making it, he made it happen. He did not win the match, unfortunately. AJ Styles did. He kept his title. I expected that. I didn't expect Jinder to win.
Yeah. Oh, there would have been a riot if he won.
Yeah, because that crowd was really behind AJ Styles. That's for sure. But it was a good match. It was a good ending. And I understand why you do a title match at the end. This is one of those ones where I think you could have had you could have put the dual special guest referee match at the end, but it was fine. It worked. What did you think of the match overall? It sounds like you enjoyed it, even though you were, like me, you were wanting Jinder to take the gold.
Yeah, I still enjoyed it. I still appreciated it. Once I heard you say that they make the better one the villain sometimes, I was like, okay, that made me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens now.
Yeah,
and then I always remember, too, even when the character loses the match, it's like, that person is still getting paid at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't feel bad for them because, even if they have some crocodile tears, it's like, all right, they're still getting their money, so good for them.
Yeah, sure. No, they're still just as important to get asses in the seats.
Oh, yeah.
At the place. Yeah, and, I think most kids, when they grow up, and if they still love wrestling, and many of them do, when they grow up, they realize, they start to realize that on their own. That's why I say it's kind of an open secret, because eventually everybody realizes, oh, actually the villains are the great wrestlers, and the heroes really don't matter as much. Some heroes can kind of transcend that, like John Cena. I don't necessarily like John Cena, even though when you wear the belt, I'll call you the champ, but like he's kind of transcended where everybody just kind of loves John Cena. Which he's technically in SmackDown. He didn't have anything to do in this pay-per-view, which I was kind of surprised that he didn't even like come running out, which he had been running out on certain SmackDown events,
right?
Actually. So anyway, regardless, so great match to end it off with, and then everybody started filing out or whatever, and we got in the card and we go. But so this is your first pay-per-view. You said at the beginning that you thought it was great overall. I mean, do you have any other comments you want to make about like what was it like seeing your first pay-per-view, in wrestling and all this?
No, just that I would like to watch it again with the commentary.
Yeah, we'll definitely watch it
already. Yep. Yeah, but I'm excited for the next one. I would totally go to another one.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll make that happen. In fact, I'd like it to be one where you get to see like Triple H and some of these other guys kind of come out. But for a lot of people that weren't really relying on their history with the company.
Yep.
I was really impressed at just how great the matches were, how quickly the storylines kind of worked, and just how excited everybody was, getting into it and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
And I expect over the next year, you'll be seeing guys like Bobby Roode and some of these other characters, really getting to that kind of like next level, and where you're going to be seeing them getting involved in bigger card championship matches, and all of this. So I'm amazed. I mean, and I was me as a longtime fan, I was concerned because I know that like a decade ago the WWE started gearing more towards kids, because they need to develop that next generation of fan that'll stick with them for the next 30 years like I did. And you got to do that. I get it. But like, pay-per-views used to be so insane. Like, matches used to, there was stuff happening, they were like peeling stuff off of like, the barrier wall between the, the crowd and the ring. But, you used to pull out, like people would start pulling out ladders and chairs.
Right.
And you'd go, they'd be wrestling up the ramp. They'd be, doing pile drivers at the top of the ramp.
Yeah.
I mean, like it'd be so insane, the things that would be going on. At some point soon, hopefully, they get back to that.
Right.
Like they've got to get back to that at some point. I understand what they're doing right now, where they're making it a lot more friendly, and you can tell there was a lot of kids in the audience, But yeah, they got to spice it back up here soon, hopefully. And then,
well, I was going to say, I mean, I thought they did a pretty decent job of making something that was entertaining for kids as well as adults.
Yep.
Because there really was nothing inappropriate about it for kids, but it was also, I as an adult was not like, oh, I'm watching a kids thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean they are walking the line. I mean, and that can be kind of easy to do when it's even though this is sports entertainment, but when it's athleticism on display, because you can make it about the athleticism. You don't have to make it so much about everything else that's going on outside of it. So, that's they have a formula that seems to be working a bit. But anyway, my hope is that in the future they get back to more of the extreme stuff. But I was very pleased with everything I saw, with all the new wrestlers that I saw, and in the matches that they put on. I mean, and kudos to them, because there was a while where the opposite was also true, where like people were saying, "Hey, where's the wrestling? Like, can we get back to the wrestling, please?"
Right.
Because there was so much backstage antics and so much talking and all this other stuff going on. So it's good to see that they can still deliver some really great technical wrestling. In my opinion. So anyway, so that's really all I've got to say on that. I mean, are we, do you think you're going to end up watching? Are we going to be watching Raw and SmackDown every week now?
Oh, yeah. I think we will.
Woo, all right. That's what I like to hear.
I'm sucked in.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, we're definitely going to be watching Tuesday's SmackDown to see the aftermath of what happened with Clash of Champions, and we'll figure out things from there. But the next pay-per-view event is the Royal Rumble, which I don't know where they're holding that, but obviously we won't be attending that. But I wouldn't mind, spending a Sunday night with you watching that live. That's my favorite. The Royal Rumble is my favorite
you said
pay-per-view, because, I mean, just that 30-man match where, every minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever the time frame is, another guy comes out and eventually you end up with like 20 guys in the ring usually or something, is always, it's so exciting. Very unique. In fact, the very first one, I think Ric Flair won the very first one. So it's always had a kind of a special place in my heart anyway. So we'll have to catch that. I don't know if we'll do a review of it, but maybe we'll do a review like this. We'll see what people think of this one. Let us know what you think of this kind of Patreon content. If you enjoy us talking about wrestling a bit here and there, or if you enjoyed let us know what you think about the carcast, because we're recording in the carcast, we're recording in the car with this beautiful H6. And anyway, Stephanie, you got anything else you want to get out there?
Woo!
Woo! All right, that's fair enough. So it looks like the weather actually cleared up in pretty good order, so that's nice. So more content, of course, will be out this week as well. We got a Relationship Rhombus show that'll be coming up soon. I will see you on the other side.